Here's 2,000 points of Space Marines. We're looking at 2 battalions and 1 Supreme Command. So that's a total of 11 command points with an extra 3 for being Battleforged, so for a total of 14. This is the Supreme Command just here. So we've got a Terminator Captain, Terminator Librarian and a Standard Chaplain. And then we've got the 2 battalions. First one is, these are the 2 HQ, 2 Primaris Lieutenants, and then in their detachment are the 2 squads of Intercessors and 1 squad of Scouts. And in the other battalion we've got the Captain in Gravis Armour and the Primaris Librarian, and in that detachment we've got the 3 5-man tack squads, all with Flamer and Chainsword on the Sergeant, and they're riding in the 3 rhinos that you can see over the back. We've also got a squad of Hellblasters in there, and also our homebrew squad of Devastators packing their usual las cannons, heavy bolter, and then a Flamer and Power Claw on the Sergeant. And finally 2 Dreadnoughts, both with twin las cannon, and then one has a Flamer and the other one has a heavy bolter. So that is the Space Marines army, 2,000 points. Here's the Ork army. This army looks quite small, and it is. However, we've got a special local rule for this, where units that are destroyed from turn 2 onwards can come back onto the table on a 4, 5 or 6, just to represent continuing reinforcements. So in the front here we've got Gurgal Wazkil, the leader of this Screaming Suns tribe. We've got a separate war boss with a Power Claw and a big shooter. We have a big mech with a shock attack gun, and we have a pain boy with Urti Syringe. He's going to be attached to one of the big squads of boys. So we've got a squad of 30 boys here. These are all 2nd edition, apart from the big shooter and the boss, who's got a Power Claw. And then a squad of 20 boys here, again big shooter and Power Claw. Killer Can with a rocket launcher and a can saw. 3 5-man squads of Knobs, or Slugger Chopper, or Big Chopper, and the leader has, well, he's identified this one with the metal helmet, this one with the metal helmet, and this one in the middle here, who's the only one in this squad without anything on his head. And then finally the biker squad over the back here. So that makes up the Ork army. As I say, they'll be coming back onto the field from turn 2 onwards on a roll of a 4, 5 or 6. Because the Space Marine side have got 14 odd command points, what we're going to do for the Ork army is we're actually going to roll a d20, and that will be their command point total, because there is no Battleforged setup for these guys. So it's only fair that they get a number of command points to use, so we will do that off camera. Amazingly, they rolled a natural 20, which is only fair because the Space Marine side have got 2 psychers and a lot of heavy weaponry, so so that kind of makes up for it a little bit. Okay, let's move on. This is the table we're playing on today, and we're using the Gauntlet scenario from Chapter Approved 2018. This is a Cities of Death narrative game. So we've got deployment for the Defender, which will be Space Marines in this 12-inch wide corridor leading up to the landing pad, which is the objective for the Orks. And then the Ork side will deploy in the 6-inch wide strips down either side of the long edge of the table. The Orks, we're playing a special rule today for our own narrative games, which is basically any destroyed Ork units from turn 2 onwards can be brought back onto the field on a d6 roll of 4, 5 or 6. This will represent the ongoing reinforcements that will arrive throughout the battle. There are 6 tactical objectives on the table. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by the crashed Huey, and 6 just behind the pipes. So Space Marines deployment is complete. We've got the three rhinos in convoy coming onto the rear of the table here. The captain, Terminate Captain, and Librarian and Chaplain are deployed with the 2 lieutenants and the Hellblasters on this side. The Devastators on the landing platform. We've then got the 2 Dreadnoughts on the front left-hand flank with the Intercessors and the Primaris Librarian and Captain, and more Intercessors here in support. And then we've got the snipers up in the building just at the top here with a commanding view of the field. The Orks, we've got the 30-man squad of 2nd edition boys just here on the Space Marines left flank. Moving along this edge of the board, we've got the War Boss, the Bike Squad and the Killer Can hiding behind the crates. There is a squad of knobs just here, right on this objective. Over onto the Space Marines right flank, up in the woods, we've got another squad of 5 knobs waiting to pounce on this objective. Gurgal and his mech with shock attack gun are just hiding behind this bush with a good view of the landing platform. We've then got the 20 boys with the Pain Boy behind this building, again within striking distance of the landing platform, and the last squad of 5 knobs just over here on the right flank. The Space Marines have elected to deploy everything on the table. There is nothing in reserve. Similarly, the Orks have got everything on the table. There was nothing really that would be worthwhile putting in deep strike, so we're going ahead with everything on the table as it stands. In terms of winning objectives, obviously the target for both sides is to either defend or capture the landing pad. Most models on there or within 3 inches dictates who wins. However, the rest of the tactical objectives are worth 2 points at the end of every turn. So there's a good opportunity for each side to build up some victory points. So we're now going to move into the first turn. So yeah, just going back to the gauntlet, which is the scenario we're playing, just want to clarify, we have tweaked it slightly. So the actual gauntlet mission is a mission which requires the defender, which in this case is the Space Marines, to have as many units as possible escape off of the farthest edge, this edge of the table. That is the victory condition. We have tweaked it slightly in that the objective in this game is to either defend or capture the landing pad. Whoever holds that at the end of the game, regardless of how many victory points they've achieved, will be deemed the winner. So we have sort of tweaked this slightly. So yeah, as I've already mentioned, each objective other than that is worth 2 victory points. However, you know, the ultimate one there, that decides who wins or loses. Final bit of rules mongering before we start. What we're going to do is, although there are no tactical objectives in the actual mission rules for this scenario, we are going to use them. We're going to use 3 each per side per turn. So if a tactical objective is achieved, then the side will draw a further objective to ensure that they always have 3 in play. The Orks, as they're going first, have drawn theirs, and we've got psychological warfare, area denial, and no prisoners. So we are now finally moving into Orks turn 1. That's Orks first turn movement complete. 5 knobs have just moved on to this objective. We've got an advance here for these guys who ended up within 6 inches of the war boss, so they still get to charge in the charge phase. Shock attack guns just move forward to the edge of the pipes. We've got these knobs on this objective and these knobs on this objective. Warbikers have advanced across to the centre, and they're armed with dagger guns, so they get to shoot anyway. And then Warboss and the Killer Can have both advanced. And then the large blob of boys have just moved on to this objective here. So currently the Orks are sitting on 8 victory points. No, they're not. They're sitting on 10 victory points. So they've got 5 objectives currently. So we're moving into shooting next. Shooting phase for the Orks is over. These guys shot at the Hellblasters. Only 2 of their number can actually see. Did no damage. These guys shot into the Devastators. These are on 2 wounds each, because we're calling them Primaris Devastators, even though they don't exist. So there's 1 wound dropped on the guy at the back there. The war boss, Gurgal himself, did no damage whatsoever. The shock attack gun managed to take out the first of the 2 dreadnoughts, which was sat just in front here. Didn't explode. These knobs are too far away. The Warbikers actually inflicted 2 wounds on that dreadnought, and then the shock attack gun took it out. These guys are too far away. Limited effectiveness from the war boss and the Killer Can on this side. Didn't actually do any damage. And this squad of boys managed to take out 2 of the intercessors from this flank. So we're now on the charge phase for the Orks. So just to talk you through what we're going to do, and then we'll do all the moves and the Overwatch off camera, and then we'll come back and see where we are. So this squad of 5 knobs, we're going to charge into this rhino. If we can tie that rhino up, then it kind of blocks movement for the 2 behind, so they'll have to find an alternative route onto the field. This squad of boys is going to charge onto the landing pad in an attempt to take control. The war boss and the pain boy will accompany them. Shock attack gun's going to stay where he is. Seems to be quite efficient, so we'll leave him there. And then these guys aren't in range of anything, as are not these knobs here, but the Warbikers who are here are then going to charge into the flank of these intercessors. We're going to see if we can get a charge from the Killer Can into the same squad. War boss, who's at the back here, will probably follow suit. And then we've got a potential charge here for this squad of boys into these intercessors on this flank. So there's quite a lot of charging going on. We'll come back when we've resolved everything and see where we are. Right, so that's all the charges over. This gang of knobs failed their charge against the rhino. The rhino took 1 wound off in Overwatch. The squad of 20 knobs just here made it into combat, however they lost 9 of their number to Overwatch. The Warbikes, unfortunately for me, I neglected to pre-measure and they were out of range of a charge anyway. The Killer Can has made it in, lost no wounds in the process, and the boss, sorry, the boys on this flank failed their charge into the intercessors but lost nothing to Overwatch. So that's all the charging done. So now moving into the fight phase. End of the combat phase, we've got one Devastator lost here and one down to 1 wound. However, the boys have lost an extra couple of their number. And then on the far side here, the Killer Can and the Intercessors, no damage on either side. So that is the end of the turn. Just going to roll for morale for the Orks, specifically this unit here, and then we'll move into Space Marines turn 1. So morale test for the Orks was failed by 3 points, so 3 of the boys have fled the field. Not looking too clever for these boys in the next turn, so moving into Space Marines turn number 1. Space Marines movement complete for turn 1, so we've got the 3 rhinos that have moved up and deployed their 5-man tac squads, all intent on taking out this unit of knobs. We've got a couple of moves in the centre here, so the captain, Terminator captain, and one of the lieutenants has moved towards the Orks on the left flank, and the other lieutenant is moving on to the landing pad to support the Devastators. We've got the remaining Dreadnought who's moved forwards, intent on taking some victory points for this objective, and also perhaps targeting either these knobs or the warbikes, and also the captain in Gravis armour and the Primaris Psyker have moved forwards on this side as well. And there was a squad of 3 Intercessors just down here who've now moved up into this building to gain some cover, and they've got a choice of targets now. They can either target down into this group here or down into this lonely war boss. So that's movement complete. We're going to do Psychic next. Okay, Psychic phase is over. Librarian on this flank cast Smite twice. First one went off on a 6, second one went off on a 7, took out 3 of these knobs. And then over on this flank, the Primaris Psyker attempted to cast Smite twice on the war boss. Failed the first attempt, which would have been on an 8, and failed the second attempt, which would have been on a 9. So no successes over that side. So now moving into shooting for Space Marines. Right, so Space Marine shooting phase is over. The combined efforts of these 3 tac squads and their rhinos have taken out the 5 knobs that were on Objective 1. Moving across, we've taken a couple of wounds off of the War leader. Gurgle himself is down to 6 wounds. Shock attack gun has lost a wound through fire from the Hellblasters. Moving over to this flank, the las cannon on the Dreadnought was ineffective against the knobs over on this flank, and the other war boss has lost 2 wounds through combined fire from the Intercessors in this building, and the Boltstorm Gauntlet on the Gravis captain. The snipers, who are up in the building here, attempted to whittle down some more wounds from the war boss and failed miserably. Did actually do a mortal wound, so actually 1 wound lost, my apologies, from the Gravis captain, and 1 wound lost from the snipers. So that's the end of the shooting phase. We're now moving into the charge phase. So charging next for Space Marines. End of the fight phase. We've got another 2 boys have been lost from the unit here, but in retaliation the Orks have managed to take out one of the Devastators, so we've dropped another one down to 1 wound. And then on this side, the Intercessors and the 2 captains, the captain and the Librarian, have managed to smash the Killer Can down to 1 wound, with no wounds received in retaliation. But we're just about to roll for that now, because the Killer Can has not yet fought back. So at the end of that, no damage done in retaliation from the Killer Can, and we've just rolled for morale, and the Orks have lost 1 more boy from this squad, so it's looking pretty ropey over here at the moment. So that's the end of Space Marines turn 1, moving into Orks turn 2. So Orks turn 2, we've got first of all to roll to see if the squad of 5 knobs comes back. So 3, 4 or 5, sorry, 4, 5 or 6. Get a 2, so they don't come back this turn. And then we need to draw a tactical objective, make us back up to 3. So we get blood and guts. Okay, let's get into movement. Right, Space Marines movement is over. We've got some movement over on this flank. The rhinos have moved this one to start targeting through to Gurgal, the war leader. We've got another rhino that's moved forwards to here, same position, just to try and put some fire onto one of these 2 units. The tactical squads have all moved up, so we've got this one preparing to countercharge into the rear of the last 2 boys, and these 2 units have moved forwards. The Hellblasters have stayed put. Command group have consolidated into this area. When I say consolidated, they've just moved forwards. We've got moves for these 2 commanders towards the warbikes. And then the intercessors, who you can probably see just down under the building there, these have all moved towards the remaining war boss over on the flank over this side. Snipers have stayed put, still in this building, still aiming to take pot shots at whatever is opportunistic in terms of targets. So that's it for Space Marines movement. Moving into shooting phase next. That's it for Space Marines movement, moving into psychic phase next. Okay, so psychic phase over. We've cast Might of Heroes on the Terminator Captain, who's just down behind the card there, just to remind us. And we also got a successful smite on the knobs over the back here for 2 mortal wounds, so one of those is down. So now it is the shooting phase for the Space Marines. End of the shooting phase for Space Marines, relatively successful. Managed to take some wounds off the Pain Boy. Gurgal has been taken off the field by combined fire from the 2 rhinos and the tactical Marines that were in range and the Hellblasters, so they've taken him out. We've managed to take out the war boss on the other flank as well. Combined fire from the intercessors, really powerful unit, within half range, rapid fire 1, so 16 shots coming out of those guys with 1 wound left on the war boss. The snipers managed to inflict 1 mortal wound on Gurgal as well, which did help to bring him down to 0. So that's the end of shooting, and we're now moving into the charge phase for Space Marines. Charge is all complete, so this rhino has charged the Pain Boy. Pain Boy's got no ranged weapons, so couldn't fire Overwatch. Tactical squad here has just piled into the back of the boys that were on the landing platform. The commanders that were in this area have just moved forwards into and charged into the squad of boys, and then the librarian and captain in Gravis armor have charged into the flank of the warbikers. Again, they were already in combat, so couldn't fire Overwatch. So that's it. Now moving into the fight phase for Space Marines. End of the fight phase for the Space Marines, and relatively good round there. So we've got rid of the last few boys from here, and the remaining units have consolidated forwards towards the Pain Boy and the shock attack gun. We managed to remove another biker from this squad here, which put the captain and the librarian out of range, so they just consolidated forwards. And then this area here, we've taken out in total this round 13 boys out of this squad, which is not too shabby. So that's the end of Space Marines turn 2. Next up is Orks turn 3. So the Orks have rolled to see if any of their units come back on. So we've got the killer cam back on here, and we've got the 5 knobs that were destroyed in round 1 over the far side there. Just going to roll for the squad of 10-20 boys, the war boss and Gurgal himself, just to see if they come back. So this is for the 20 boys. No, they don't. This is for the war boss. Yes, he does. And this is for Gurgal. Yes, he does. So the Warboss and Gurgal are back on the table. Just a quick victory point summary. Space Marines currently are on 11, having achieved 2 or 3 of the objectives on the table. Currently are in control of the landing pads, so that possibly is going to be a decider. And the Orks are also on 11, having secured objectives at the very start on the edges of the table, but have also achieved several of their tactical objectives. Orks have 19 command points left, and the Space Marines are down to 13. So currently it's a slight edge ahead for the Space Marines just because they're on the landing pad. Okay, so end of Orcs movement phase for turn 3, and we've got the Killer Can who's moved forwards to support the shock attack gun, and some knobs that have moved forwards off of the small hill that they were controlling. Over on the Space Marines left flank, we've got Gurgal and the knobs moving forwards towards this combat, and then we've got the Warboss and the other 5 knobs moving in to get into charge range of the intercessors on this flank. So that's it for movement for Space Marines. So we're moving, sorry, for Orks, and we're now moving into the shooting phase. Well, that was a really poor shooting phase for the Orks. Killer Can managed to miss, shock attack gun, miss, 5 knobs, miss, Gurgal himself, miss, these 4, miss, these 5 managed to take 1 wound off of the intercessors, and this Warboss missed completely. So terrible round of shooting there for the Orks. Now moving into the charge phase. After a charge phase that saw some mixed fortunes, the Killer Cans made it into the Rhino. These knobs failed their charge. They were charging the Rhino and fell short. Over on this flank, the 4 knobs have managed to make it into the Dreadnought. However, Gurgal failed his charge, so he's been left high and dry. And then the 5 knobs and the Warboss have made it into the intercessors. Lost no wounds, although the intercessors scored a hit, they didn't manage to wound. Just on a side note, if you can hear an odd whistling noise in the background, that's because it's very windy and rainy outside, and there's wind whistling down a pipe, which is right there, and that pipe's got a split in it, and that's the noise you can hear if you can hear it. So apologies for that. Moving into the fight phase for Orks. End of the fight phase for Orks, and some more successes. So the Killer Can failed to do any damage to the Rhino. However, the Power Claw on the Weird Boy was intensely devastating and basically smashed it down to 0 from 6 wounds. Didn't explode, so not much else going on over here. But on the other side of the board, the Warbike has been removed after losing all of its wounds to the Dreadnought. Dreadnought's now on 5 wounds, however there's still 4 knobs left here, and the Captain in Gravis Armour and the Primaris Librarian have consolidated in to support the Dreadnought in that combat. More successful this side, these Orks have taken out 4 of the 5 intercessors in this squad at a cost of 0 wounds, so they've done really well. Unfortunately, however, the squad of 2nd edition boys, which was in this combat with the command group, has been completely, well, virtually destroyed. There are currently 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 in that squad out of 30, so on the verge of being annihilated. So that's the end of the fight phase. So we're now going to look at morale quickly, and then it will be Space Marines turn 3. Bit of a Struggle for Space Marines movement. The Rhino on the left flank has moved forwards. These intercessors have not moved, but will probably charge. Hellblasters have moved forwards in support, so maybe looking at a potential charge for these guys over to this combat here, but they're still in range if they need to shoot over towards this side. So we've got no movement here, and then the two tactical squads have moved forwards, and the other Rhino has moved forwards also. So no major moves forward. We're just looking at consolidating around the landing pad to try and protect that a little bit more. So now moving into Psychic for the Space Marines. So after a relatively successful Psychic phase, we've got some smite wounds caused on Gurgal, who's down to 4 from 8. And over this side, the Terminator Librarian has managed to knock out a further 3 of the boys from this squad, so not too bad at all. Moving into shooting for Space Marines. End of the shooting phase for Space Marines, and they've managed to whittle the Killer Can down by a wound. The shock attack gun's down to 2 wounds. Gargle has been destroyed, so he's off the table again, waiting to be re-rolled back on. And that's about it. The plasma incinerators on the Hellblasters actually targeted him and did no damage. It was fire from these intercessors and these snipers that actually did the damage, with 2 mortal wounds from the snipers plus a regular hit, and then 3 wounds from the intercessors. So good work from those guys. So we're now moving into the charge phase for Space Marines. It was a very quick charge phase. The only charge that we've made is to get the intercessors into the backside of this combat, just to support the sergeant from the other squad, because he's a little bit beleaguered. Everything else is staying where it is. So fight phase for Space Marines coming up next. So as we come to the end of Space Marines turn 3, we can see that the board has thinned out quite a lot in terms of Orks. So we've got Killer Can, shock attack gun, 5 knobs. The last warbike has gone from here, as have the last 4 knobs in that squad. We've got the knobs and the warboss here challenging the last few intercessors. And we literally have 1 boy left in this squad. So yeah, there's not much going on for Orks at the moment, but we're moving into Orks turn 4, so we're going to re-roll for a lot of units, so there may be some reinforcements coming onto the board this turn. In terms of victory points, it's now 14 to Space Marines and 12 to Orks, so the Space Marines are slowly creeping ahead currently. Let's see what happens in the next turn. I'm just going to roll for Ork reinforcements. So this is for the Pain Boy. He's not coming back. This is for 5 knobs. They are coming back. This is for 20 boys. 20 boys coming back on the table. And this is for Gurgal, the war leader, who is not coming back. So we've got 5 knobs, 20 boys, and finally the warbikes. The warbikes aren't coming back. So after the Orks shooting phase, we've managed to get the Rhino down to 3 wounds from 10, mostly due to the shock attack gun and the knobs. And over on this side, the only other unit that could shoot was this squad of 5 knobs, which had advanced forwards to be within 6 inches of the warboss. And they failed to score any hits on the Gravis captain. So that's it for shooting from the Orks. Now we're moving into the charge phase. Successful charge from the Killer Can and the 5 knobs. However, the Killer Can's lost a wound to Overwatch. And then over on the far side, the 5 knobs that came in as reinforcements have successfully charged into the last 2 intercessors. That's it for charging for Orks for this turn, so we're now moving into the fight phase. Let's see how they get on. So after rather an intense fight phase, these Orks have managed to take out the last two intercessors. The command group that were fighting that lone boy have managed to dispatch him and have consolidated forwards to where this combat was. It's now moved. We've got the Rhino gone over on this side due to overwhelming attacks from the Orks, and the killer can exploded, took the killer can down to 1 wound and took out 2 Space Marines from the landing pad. And that is the end of the Ork turn. So moving on to the Space Marines now, turn 4. End of Space Marines movement, and the Rhino has done the wise thing and reversed in order to take some shots at the Orks in the shoot phase. We've got the command squad that have just moved into charge range, looking to engage with these guys once that shooting has taken place. Dreadnought and the 2 commanders in the centre have done an about face and are now aiming towards the shock attack gun and the boys on the right flank. Hellblasters have moved up onto the pad. All the Space Marines have moved forwards to get into charge range of this group of Orks here. So it's all looking like it's going to get very, very grubby and hand to hand very, very soon. End of the psychic phase for Space Marines. Librarian failed to cast Smite, but cast Might of Heroes on the captain. And Librarian this side had a successful Smite on the shock attack gun, taking it down to 1 wound. And then on a increased roll of 8, actually rolled an 11 and took out the killer can as well. So moving into shooting for Space Marines. Bit of a mixed bag for the shooting phase. We managed to clear out the knobs from here and the shock attack gun is now gone. We've got a couple of knobs out of the units over here and 1 more wound on the war boss. So it's not going too badly at the moment. We're moving into the charge phase for Space Marines next. So that's the charge phase complete for the Space Marines. The Librarian charged into the left-hand squad of knobs here. The knobs failed to score any hits on Overwatch. So once the Librarian was in, obviously the rest of the knobs couldn't fire Overwatch, so the other 3 commanders have charged into the same unit. Not forgetting the captain has got Might of Heroes, and then the Rhino behind this pipe was attempting to charge into the other squad of knobs, and again they failed to score any hits on Overwatch, but the Rhino did actually fail its charge, so hasn't actually moved. So that's it for charges. Combat next. So the fight phase has now come to a close for the Space Marines. Managed to take out 3 knobs in that phase. An extra wound taken on the Primaris Lieutenant on the left there, so he's down to 2 wounds. Slightly disappointed with the Chaplain. The Chaplain seems to be the one that's dealing out the most damage, but this round he didn't really do very much at all. So that's the end of the Space Marines for turn 4, so we're going to move into Orks for turn 5. So start of the Orks, turn 5, just going to roll for reinforcements. So Painboy is back. Warbikers are not back. Gurgal is back. Killer Can, not back. Shock Attack is back. 5 knobs is not back. And 20 boys, sorry, 30 boys are not back. So that's Orks movement phase over. So this blob has moved forwards, advanced actually, to get onto the objective, but also to start challenging for the landing pad. Painboy's moved up. Shock attack gun back on the table, just here, aiming over towards the central area, and then over on the other side of the board we've got still got this combat going on here, but then the 4 knobs and the war boss have advanced towards the Rhino to try and tie that up in combat. So we're now moving into shooting for the Orks. Slightly disappointing shooting from the Orks this turn. Managed to take out one squad of Space Marines with a shock attack gun. Did a wound on the Primaris Lieutenant. However, that's about it, bearing in mind there's all these shots going in. Didn't do very much damage at all. And then over on the far side, the war boss and the 4 remaining knobs did no damage to the Rhino. So very, very light in terms of damage this round. So we're now moving into charges. End of the charge phase for Orks. So we've got the boys with Gurgal and the Pain Boy all in combat with the Space Marines just at the base of the landing pad. And then over on the far side, no damage in Overwatch, and the knobs and the war boss are in combat with the Rhino. So we're now moving into the fight phase for Orks for turn 5. So as turn 5 for the Orks draws to a close, we've seen the Space Marines in this quadrant here whittled down to just 2 remaining. The Gurgal War Leader has consolidated into the Space Marine Lieutenant. However, the knobs have been destroyed that were in combat with the command group here, and these knobs and the war boss have failed to inflict any damage on the Rhino. So looks like there may be a countercharge in the offing here, and we're still currently contesting the landing pad. So moving into turn 5 for Space Marines. So turn 5 Space Marines movement now complete. We've got nothing much going on here. The Devastators are within easy charge range of Gurgal, the War Leader. Dreadnought and Librarian and Captain in Gravis Armour have moved forwards to better target the shock attack gun over on this flank, and the command group over on the left flank have moved to within charge range of the rear of the knobs and war boss. So it's now psychic phase for Space Marines. So psychic phase over for Space Marines. The Primaris Librarian rolled a double 6. So caused the perils on himself, but survived. So the power went off and actually caused D6 for 6 mortal wounds on the shock attack gun, which is now off the field. The Librarian over on the far side here failed to cast Smite, and did successfully cast Might of Heroes again on the Terminator Captain, who's going into this combat with +1. So that's it for the psychic phase, and now moving into shooting phase for Space Marines, which actually is virtually non-existent because there are no free Ork units on the table. We've got combat over here, so they can't be targeted. Combat here, he can't be targeted. Combat here, they can't be targeted. So that's it for shooting, and we're going to move into the charge phase. Space Marine charge is now complete, so we've got combat going on down here with the 2 remaining tacticals against this big blob of boys. The Hellblasters and the Devastators have charged into this combat, so not looking too clever for Gurgal at the moment. These guys did attempt to charge. It's a bit of a long way off, but failed, so they've remained where they are. And the command group over here all successfully charged into the rear of the knobs and the war boss. So 3 big blobs of combat to come up next. Fight phase is over now, so the Orks have managed to take out the last 2 tactical Marines from this big combat here. Lieutenant's gone from here, Gurgal's down to 4 wounds, and on the far side the only wound that was done to one of the knobs which is really not very good at all, bearing in mind the captain was at +1 strength and +1 toughness for the whole of that combat. So that is the end of Space Marines turn 5. So we're now moving into Orks turn 6. So start of the Orc turn, let's see what's coming back on. So 3 war bikes are back on. Shock attack gun is back on. Killer can is not on. 5 men knob squad back on. 5 man knob squad back on. 30 man knob squad, boy squad, sorry, not on. Okay, so let's get these reinforcements back on the table and then we'll move into Orcs turn 6. So end of Orc movement. The knobs have moved on to objective 1. We've got objective number 2 covered here, and a massive great big melee Jew in the middle there. Warbikes have advanced to get into charge range as they're now within 6 inches of Gazgul. Gurgal, I should say. He's not Gazgul Thraka. It really isn't. And then on the other side of the table, we've got the other squad of knobs that came on in reserves, which has moved on to objective 6 and is within charge range of the rear of this command group. So now moving into the shooting phase for the Orcs. So Orcs shooting is over. The only real damage has come from the shock attack gun, which, believe it or not, surprise surprise, took 5 wounds off the dreadnought, which didn't explode. And the Dakar guns on the warbikes have taken 2 wounds off of the Primaris librarian. This squad of knobs over the far side attempted to shoot into the snipers in the top floor here, but didn't score any hits. So that's it for the shooting phase. Now moving into the charge phase for Orcs. Charge is complete, so the boys have charged onto the landing pad and are now engaged in hand-to-hand with this blob of Space Marines. Warbikes have charged into the Primaris Psyker, purely because he has no ranged weapons, so can't fire Overwatch. And then over on this flank, the knobs have charged into the rear of the command squad. Also no Overwatch there because they're already in combat. So now it's fight phase for the Orcs. End of the fight phase for turn 6 for the Orcs, and the war boss and 2 of the knobs that were attacking the Rhino have been dispatched. However, the Rhino's now down to 2 wounds. The knobs that caned into the back of the command group have done no damage whatsoever and have received no damage in return. And then in the centre here, we've lost 2 of the Devastators. The Hellblasters are now surrounded, and the Warbikes have managed to get 1 wound off, or the Librarian down to 1 wound here. So that's the end of the Orcs turn 6. We're going to move into Space Marines turn 6 in a moment. Very short movement phase, literally no movement whatsoever for Space Marines. Psychic phase saw a mortal wound on the shock attack gun from the Primaris Librarian here, and then over this side the Terminator Librarian managed to get a 10 on smite and caused D6 of 6 mortal wounds on the knobs who were in combat with the Rhino, so those are now off the field. So moved into charging, only 1 charge, which was the Gravis Captain into the flank of the Warbikes. So now it's fight phase for Space Marines, turn 6. So at the end of the fight phase for Space Marines, we have literally got the Hellblaster Sergeant left on the landing pad. 1 warbiker gone, but no wounds taken from the other 2 here. And then over this side, the command squad have been successful and removed both the warboss and the 2 knob squads. However, looking at the current standings, the amount of orcs we have on the table here on the landing pad and knobs here. Shock attack gun is still here. I haven't rolled yet to see what's coming back onto the table. Let's do that now, and then we can decide how to proceed. So we've got the war boss. He's coming back on. Killer Can is coming back on. 5 knobs not coming on. 5 knobs not coming on. 30 boys. 30 boys are coming back on. So actually that's a big advantage for the Orks. And I'm going to call it there and say it's an Ork victory. Command point wise, the Orks have finished on 24, and the Space Marines, sorry, victory points wise, the Orks have finished on 24, Space Marines have finished on 22. However, it is a victory overall for the Orks, who now have control of the landing pad. That's the end of the game. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you soon.